Blue lights and sirens, yeah, it's time to go. No time to defund us. You should know that we're not perfect. We're human, we're flawed. Just save us some grace for the sake of us all. We're holding that thin blue line, 'cause that's what we do. We don't do it for the glory, we do it for you.
Hello, Vax Choice and Clouthub community. Thank you so much for joining us today for In the Lion's Den, hosted by Dr. Bill Lionberger. How are you doing today, Dr. Bill?
We're doing good. We're doing good. Boy, every day in the news, it's another exciting day of progress. So I'm excited to have some of the conversation we're going to have today and follow on to our last week's show. So
yeah, we are recording this on Wednesday and it is airing on Thursday, the 30th. But I've been watching the Kennedy confirmation hearing when I can today. I don't know if they're just having all the pharmaceuticals start or if it's going to look this way the whole time, but it's not encouraging. I'm hoping that they confirm him and that when this airs, everybody will have a better idea. But
well, I think that, you know, as they continue to ask the questions that they thought were going to be hard, the reality is that the information that he comes forward with is damning. So the more they ask, the worse it is for them. And,
I wish they'd let him talk about the lawsuits he's won against these people. Like Elizabeth Warren was like, you will promise that you will not make any money from lawsuits during this role or after. And he's like, no.
No. Yeah, you know, it's quite amazing to watch somebody with his skill and experience really handle these people that are nothing but partisan, you know what. So
absolutely. And today on the show, we have a new guest that we haven't had on before. We've got Lieutenant Stephen Rogers. You heard that correctly, Stephen Rogers. He has served with distinction in the U.S. Air Force from 1970 to 1974 and U.S. Navy Reserves from 1986 to 2010, retiring as a lieutenant commander. During his Navy career, he held key intelligence roles, including Deputy Director of the Intelligence Support Group for Homeland Security and Senior Military Intelligence Officer to the FBI National Joint Terrorism Task Force. He also served as Deputy Chief of Staff Intelligence and contributed to national security initiatives post 9/11. Beyond his military service, Lieutenant Rogers retired as a detective lieutenant from the Nutley, New Jersey Police Department in 2011 and was elected to the public office where he established New Jersey's first municipal military and Veterans Affairs Bureau. He holds a degree in criminal justice from William Patterson University and completed advanced studies in the military strategy and global terrorism. We also have returning guests, Mary Fanning and Christie Hutcherson. All of the links to our guests will be available in the description below the video, so please make sure to follow them and check them out. All right, well, I will be in the background enjoying the show, Dr. Bill, and can come back at the end for questions. I will see you then.
Excellent. So welcome to In the Lion's Den today. This is a follow-on Iron Fist Diplomacy and Trump's Global Chessboard Part 2. In today's show, where we are continuing our discussion regarding the shifting tectonics of global power dynamics and the stakes of Americans' future on the world stage. With the legacy of President Trump's foreign policy still echoing, it's more important than ever that the U.S. must reclaim our global leadership and reassert its dominance around the world with peace through strength, which is threatened by our adversaries who have been emboldened by years of weakness and indecision. It is also important to highlight the aggressive expansion of China to Russia's growing belligerence against the U.S. In the current global context, it is necessary for our military to undergo a major realignment, recognizing that our military dominance has been gutted by the woke ideologies that prioritize social experiments over battlefield readiness. At this time, we find our forces are less prepared, less cohesive, and less capable of facing our global threats. We need to build back and focus on its core mission to defend and protect our U.S. interests before all others. Under the Biden administration, we witnessed a serious degradation of U.S. military power and readiness, compounded by those policies that prioritized ideologies over our readiness. It's time to tear down the dangerous policies that have weakened and threatened the U.S., or we risk losing our place at the top of the global food chain, and with it, the stability of the world. And with that, I'd like to bring on our special guest today, retired Lieutenant Commander Stephen Rogers, Christie Hutcherson, a geopolitical security expert and returning a co-host, and Mary Fanning, a national security journalist and frequent expert on the show. Welcome to all of you on In the Lines Day.
Pleasure to be here.
Nice to be with you, Dr. Bill.
Well, I'm excited today to continue to kick this can and talk about the shift in the polarity and the shift with this new administration and the pace with which it's happening. I want to further vet out what's going on in the military, because there's all kinds of things I'm sure going on behind the scenes. And I would probably start with Lieutenant Rogers, and your thoughts about what's going on behind the scenes with the military and those generals that need to go, and probably what's happening at the Pentagon these days.
Well, what was going on behind the scenes was the advancement of a woke agenda ideology that certainly took our troops, our warriors, off of the battlefields and into the classroom. They had our young men and women more concerned about pronouns, more concerned about how do you address another officer. I mean, it was a train wreck. It did affect the morale, it did affect the welfare, and more important, it certainly affected our national security. So now what's happening, because of the new administration, I'm very happy to see that President Trump swiftly acted. I mean, he didn't waste any time in making sure that all of this crazy ideology is going to disappear, and has been disappearing not only in all our services, but very importantly at our military academies. So all this is happening now, and it's going to bring us back to where we belong. You see the picture behind me, President Ronald Reagan. He was very, very clear on peace through strength. You mentioned it, Dr. Bill, and I'm happy to see that President Trump is picking up on that theme and making sure that we will become the global power for people to deal with in the future.
So, Christie, as a securities expert and working in the arena, actually boots on the ground, contracts, all that kind of thing, what is shifting behind the scenes, and what, we've got all of this mess of contracts and wars, Ukraine, Russia. What do you see evolving out there in terms of where we need to go now?
Well, Lieutenant Rogers, right. First and foremost, they're attacking what has prevented what I believe is true military readiness, and that is the ideology of this woke DEI. It actually weakens our military. It does not strengthen us. We need to make sure that the men and women who are in the positions, especially those on the front line, have the capabilities to activate and to be able to fully put America's defense first, right? And so I believe that they're cleaning house in the right way. As far as contracts and things like that are concerned, it's really interesting because contracts are on a cycle, and that's going to take a little bit more time to figure out contracts that have already been awarded that maybe need to be pulled back. What companies have those contracts, it's a little bit more complicated and legal. So that's going to take Trump's team a little bit longer. But at the end of the day, one of the first steps is, and I loved what Pete said the other day, our new Secretary of Defense. We have got to combat China. China is the number one threat facing not just the United States of America, but actually on a global scale, the world. They have, while we've been weak, they've been advancing. And by the way, through, I believe, the help of the Biden administration, through a lot of things that we can go into later. But we have to get our naval readiness back up to par. We need to put back in the numbers and the properly trained men and women in uniform to do their task and be trained in the proper ways. And we need to also combat the AI. We look at threats against the United States aren't just kinetic. We have our grid systems, right? So Biden allowed China
to come back in and put over 460 something transformers on our power grids. So the warfare and our military might is going to look, I think, a little bit deeper and bigger and from a 30,000 foot view, because we're being attacked in a lot of different areas where I believe prior to Trump's first term in office, he didn't face some of the things now that we're going to be facing. And our military is the number one thing that we need to focus on. And then we also need to look at how the rest of the law enforcement agencies can work together to be those eyes, ears, and boots on the ground, because Lieutenant Rogers and I were talking earlier today about the terrorists who are actually in this country, who are plotting and planning a big multiple threats against the United States as well. So again, we have multiple fronts. We have a lot of things that we have to do. It's going to take a little bit of time, but we have the right leadership, I believe, in place.
Hey, Dr. Bill, could I follow up on what Christie just offered?
Sure.
National security, right? There's another front, and it's not talked about very much, and that's our educational system. And Christie's right. The Chinese Communist Party have a lot of patience. They got a lot of time, and they've got a lot of strategic planning and tactics that they're using that we may be unaware of, meaning the American people. So national security in the short term, yes, we have to do everything that Christie just shared with you, but in the long term, we got to overhaul our educational system. We got to get our young people involved in what America is all about, the greatness of this country. Why be proud of America? The advancements we made as the American people. And that is long term and affects recruitment into the United States military. Because right now it's at a dismal state of affairs regarding getting young people in the military. We have to return to that. So there's several fronts. And I just want to add the educational front is a very important factor in the future of this country's security.
So, Mary, you are so good at seeing the big picture. Here we are, this new administration. There's so much work to be done. We're seeing boots hit the ground running. What do you think are the criticals that we're working on, that we need to be working on, and also where we need to pick up the pace, especially in the military? And like he's talking about educational indoctrination, which I would call it, because they play the long game very well and we don't. So